Well, my advice, Freddie, if your car is broken into and you want the police to take it seriously, get a can of spray paint and spray on the dashboard, trans women aren't women. Report it as a hate crime, and literally there'll be a helicopter, mobs of police officers, Metropolitan Police Special Intelligence Unit.
Yeah, you jest, but only a bit. Hello and welcome to Spectator TV. Now, do you have any Brexity things in your house? You may not even have supported Brexit, but you might have some copies of The Spectator, perhaps a book by Douglas Murray or someone like that. And that might be enough to attract the interest of a British police officer. I'm talking about the story of Julian Foulkes, who, it emerged this weekend, had his home searched after he posted something that was deemed to be a little bit offensive or dangerous on Twitter or X. And we were very struck that as they were searching the flats, the police officers said that there were Brexity things. And one of these Brexit things was some copies of The Spectator, because Mr Foulkes has a subscription to The Spectator.
The public are on to them.
That's a little odd.
We've actually now offered him a free subscription for life to the magazine. He hasn't got back to us yet, but hopefully he will. And on the cover of the magazine this week, we've put the magazine the police don't want you to read, to give us a little bit of radical edge. To talk about this story, I'm delighted to be joined by Toby Young, our, what are you, associate editor?
I'm an associate editor.
Associate editor, and head, of course, of the Free Speech Union, who has been you've taken up Mr Foulkes' case. Toby, explain the actual case. Why did the police go to Mr Foulkes, who I should say is a former special constable, former police officer himself? Why did they go to his house?
Yeah, so as far as we know, Freddie, the story is that in 2023, Suella Braverman wrote a piece in The Telegraph describing the pro-Palestinian marches that were then taking place every Saturday through our major city centres as hate marches. And someone on X had objected to this and defended the protesters. And he, I think, had said underneath this person attacking Suella Braverman, one step away from storming Heathrow looking for Jewish arrivals, ... which was a reference to reports, I think, earlier that day of an anti-Semitic mob storming an airport in Dagestan, Russia, hunting for people arriving from Israel.
Yeah.
Somebody, perhaps this person who he'd replied to on X, reported him to the Metropolitan Police. The Metropolitan Police referred it to their Police Intelligence Command, which is a special unit set up to deal with terrorism and extremism. And instead of dismissing this as none of their concern, they referred Julian Foulkes' tweet to Kent Police, citing, quote, concerns around online content, unquote.
I mean, you can see how, obviously it never should have got that far, but you could see why initially somebody might have thought, just taking the tweet out of context, somebody might have thought, oh, actually, maybe he's saying he's going to go and attack Jews at Heathrow. He says one step away.
But you'd think that a specialist police unit, which has the word intelligence in its description, would have the intelligence to actually look at the context and see that it was actually a response to another tweet, which in turn was a response to an article by Suella Braverman. And in that context, it obviously doesn't meet the threshold for being a speech crime.
But apparently not. And Kent Police, Julie, then searched his home.
Kent Police, all too typically, turned up on his doorstep, mob-handed. So 5 police officers turned up at his house. They ransacked his house, identified these Brexity books. In one case, Freddie, in the video recording, because he recorded it, the police find a book by David Green, entitled "The Demise of the Free State," which is about the EU and its malign influence. And the police officer who found this book identified it as being slightly odd. This is slightly odd. But I suppose, credit to the police, they did twig that was a Brexity book. It's not obvious from the... It is a Brexity book. So perhaps they weren't, completely uneducated. But anyway, having ransacked his house, I mean, one of the things they found, one of the things they rifled through, were some newspaper cuttings that he kept about the death of his daughter. He has two daughters, and one had died, I think, in a hit-and-run accident 15 years earlier, and made slightly insensitive comments about this. Went through his wife's underwear drawer.
Yeah.
God knows what they were looking for, or why they believed they had kind of sufficient justification to do all of this. But anyway, they then arrested him, took him down to the station, and held him in custody in a cell for 8 hours, and only released him when he agreed to accept a caution.
And I believe they only removed his handcuffs because a police officer recognised that he had been a special constable and said, you don't need to do that.
The thing there are a number of elements which make this story awful, but one of the elements is that for 10 years he served as a special constable for Kent Police, which is a voluntary position, an unpaid position, and you risk life and limb as a special constable without being paid. You'd think that they would have at least treated him with some respect, not gone through the newspaper cuttings of his daughter's death or his wife's underwear drawer, given that he'd been a colleague until quite recently.
Why is the British police force so bad at this? I mean, nothing drives the public more crazy than the fact that crimes go pretty much uninvestigated. Your car gets stolen, nobody cares. They'll just give you a form for your insurance. And yet...
well, my advice, Freddie, if your car is broken into and you want the police to take it seriously, get a can of spray paint and spray on the dashboard, trans women aren't women. Report it as a hate crime, and literally there'll be a helicopter, mobs of police officers, Metropolitan Police Special Intelligence Unit.
Yeah, you jest, but only a bit. I mean, it's not. We're not far off that world. Why? I mean, are there elements within the police force that are trying to change the hate speech overreach?
Well, there are senior police officers who've criticised the police seemingly prioritising these online speech crimes, most of which aren't in fact crimes, over actual crimes. I think there's quite a lot of unhappiness within the police service that they spend so much time investigating and recording non-crime hate incidents. The Free Speech Union calculates about 250,000 have been recorded since they were first introduced in 2014, since the concept was brought in 2014. That's an average of over 60 a day. It just seems an extraordinary waste of police resources, and you would hope that there will be a course correction at some point. Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has tabled an amendment to the Crime and Policing Bill, which is about to be debated in the Commons, to scrap non-crime hate incidents. So that, I think, would help. I think the police receive very little training when it comes to what the legal protections are for our free speech. The Free Speech Union submitted FOI requests to all the police forces in England and Wales to find out how much training they were receiving from various kind of grifting DEI kind of freelancers, and how much about Article 10, for instance, the right to freedom of expression in the European Convention. And it turned out that they were receiving hours and hours of kind of equality training, but next to no training at all about the importance of protecting our free speech. So that's one of the things that needs to change. But I think, as you say, there's so much public outrage, I think, when another one of these episodes is reported. I mean, this is a particularly egregious one, but there are numerous episodes. Virtually every week we learn that the police have turned up on someone's doorstep mob-handed because of something they've said on social media, which doesn't even approach the threshold for being a criminal offence.
And the rot starts at the top, because the government appear to be in complete denial about this. So J.D. Vance gave this famous speech in Europe, where he mentioned free speech issues in Britain and how the State Department was concerned about that. And then when Keir Starmer went to visit Donald Trump in Washington, Vance brought it up again. And Starmer said, we're very proud of our record of free speech. We've had free speech for a very long time in this country and we'll continue to do so. He doesn't even seem to sort of recognise that there are free speech problems in Britain.
No, I don't think he does recognise that. Not only, across a number of areas, this government is demonstrating its kind of complete disregard for free speech. So Yvette Cooper has said she wants the police to actually record more non-crime hate incidents, not less. Apparently more than 60 a day is not enough for the Home Secretary. They should actually be recording, investigating and recording even more non-crimes. They've set up this commission to produce an official definition of Islamophobia. And then once they've got the official definition, they're then going to disseminate it through various public institutions and make sure that it's embedded in policies and language guides in those institutions. One step away from introducing, a new blasphemy law, although it'll just cover the Muslim population, not the Christian population. We see Keir Starmer during the social unrest last summer was encouraging the authorities to clamp down hard on people who said, intemperate things on social media. And
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law.
One poor woman, Lucy Connolly, the wife of a Conservative councillor, ended up getting 31 months for a tweet, which admittedly was pretty nasty, but she deleted it within hours. Someone who was convicted, several people who were convicted of being part of a grooming gang in 2013, which included actually raping children, only got 30 months. So they got 1 month less than Lucy Connolly. The Free Speech Union is appealing Lucy Connolly's sentence, and we're going to be at the Royal Court of Justice on Thursday, tomorrow, protesting. We're going to be holding up banners saying, "Police our streets, not our tweets."
Well, as you know, Toby, we love what you do at the Free Speech Union, and we hope you keep doing it. What's going on in the case of Julian Foulkes? What's the latest in his case?
So the Free Speech Union is helping him sue Kent Police for wrongful arrest and for unlawfully depriving him of his liberty. The chief constable, on the day the Telegraph broke this story, rang him to apologise. So they've effectively admitted they were in error. He hired a solicitor who helped him get the caution removed from his record. But I don't think it's enough for them to remove the caution and apologise. They need to pay him substantial compensation. It's only if the police, are made to bleed, if they engage in this kind of appalling policing of perfectly lawful speech, that they will stop doing it. So we're going to help him hopefully get a substantial settlement from Kent Police, so they'll be less likely to do this again.
Well, more power to your elbow. And of course, viewers should carry on the fight for free speech by subscribing to The Spectator.
Yes, indeed.
Essential. Thanks very much, Toby.